With this video, let's start the section of the course in which I'll actually share with you my own entrepreneur journey. Why am I doing this? Well, first of all, I made a lot of common mistakes that you can learn from. Second, you'll see how it really happens, how long it takes, how much struggle there can be, because I know you see a lot of success case studies all over social media. Everybody's screaming about how much money they're making. But in this section, I'll share with you the real story. So we'll start at the beginning. I started my entrepreneurship journey essentially during early college. As I got to take all these classes, I realized even though I was a computer science major, I had a lot of curiosity around philosophy, psychology, writing, exploring different ideas. And I started getting project ideas around these topics, sometimes combining the topics. Of course, I didn't know anything about business then, so my ideas were just more curiosities and things that I was into. But at the same time, I started tinkering with them, because the great thing about being a computer science major is that overnight you can start working on things like start coding projects, start building websites. So you don't have to be stuck in the idea phase. You can put things into action, which is something really instrumental and important for entrepreneurship. And outside of college, I also had a part-time job where I was a security guard at night. And of course, I saw how my security guard company was handling things, and they were still doing things in like pen and paper. So I was thinking like, let's digitize it, right? And so one business idea I had was to create software that would help to run that security company better. This is just an example of my idea. I never built that one because I had no clue. How do you sell this software? How do you approach people? Really, I had no experience at all. But I kept tinkering, and then as I finished college and I got a real 9-to-5 job as a software engineer, I realized that I actually don't really have a passion for the things I'm doing at work. Like, it's a nice salary. I really like the software engineering part, but I didn't care for what the companies that hired me were building, and it was just not fulfilling. So I kept on working on my own projects every chance I got, like in the evenings, on weekends, in the mornings, even sometimes on the bus to work. Working on my own ideas and my own curiosities really inspired me, much more than the things that I was doing at work. But the problem is that I kept on making business and strategy errors because, again, just like I didn't learn business in college, I didn't learn business being a software engineer. And so I networked a lot in these meetup groups, and until one day I came across this, quote unquote business guy, which later we became friends. But then he started asking me questions like, well, how does your idea make money? And additional follow-up strategy questions, and got me thinking about those topics. And as we brainstormed more deeply about how to make my business ideas more practical, I started getting better ideas, and we got into better markets like e-commerce. And one idea we had was to build an interesting search engine that would help people find the right shoes for them. That didn't really work as a business, but at least I was in lucrative spaces now. And one lesson for why that idea didn't work was because, I got into something lucrative, but at the same time, I didn't know much about fashion, and I didn't know much about e-commerce, and I didn't really care about fashion that much. It wasn't like a passion. So I was starting from absolute zero and making so many mistakes on top of the mistakes in business I would have made because I didn't know business, right? So that's a lesson of be careful of getting into fields that you don't know very well. Then, with the idea in mind that I should get into something I know and like, I got this idea to create a meetup style website for hikers. If you're not familiar with Meetup, it's an event site for everything, all kinds of events. I was just going to do the hiking and outdoors. And I thought it would be really easy for me to get their hike organizers onto my site because my site was going to be free and Meetup charges some kind of a small fee. But right away, I met some challenges. First lesson that I had to learn is don't compete with big and loved companies. Compete with disliked companies. So Meetup is a generally liked company. So it was really hard to get hike organizers to come over from Meetup and start using my site for their hikes because my site was too new. I didn't have as many hikers on it, and I just couldn't fill their hikes with hikers, right? I couldn't bring them people to their hikes as well as Meetup could do, so I was not able to compete with Meetup. So I had to change direction and strategy. And that's another thing to think about, is that if you have a strategy that you go into business with and it's wrong, it's really hard to turn things around. So I had to change from this group hiking to what I ended up doing was I had to run really cool, flashy hikes. Like I had a hike in San Francisco, which is a major city, like a low tide shipwreck hunt. So during low tide, you can see ships that sunk on the coast of San Francisco many decades ago. It almost feels surreal, like people don't even know that's possible. But yes, there are ships you can see during low tide, and I actually had to find them, figure out when the low tides were, organize the ships, organize the hikes. But then those hikes actually went a little bit viral, and they got attention and publicity because a lot of people were like, oh my God, this sounds really cool. And those group hikes actually ended up doing really well for me. And it kind of turned my hiking idea into an events business. And that was the beginning of how I started having small successes. So in the next video, I'll start to go over, well, how did things start to improve for me in my journey? But you see, actually what I wanted to show you is just how long it took me and just how many errors I made. Mind you, in this video, I was able to explain it in minutes, but this took years. Think about all the projects, college, after college, etc., etc. So there's a lot of struggle. And when you're struggling every day is really challenging and difficult. Now we skipped over it, but just picture how hard it must have been. So if you're facing challenges, you're not alone. For most people, this is how things end up working out. There's a lot of things to try and experiment with until you get things right.
Did you find this insightful? Was it useful in your journey to improve your productivity and increase your bottom line? If so, we have some good news for you. Along with other outstanding lecturers, we have developed a wealth of resources, including tools and online courses, many of them which are free, by the way, in order to help you develop your understanding of your business, bring clarity to your journey, and see what works for your enterprise. Get in touch today.